hide behind the cloak. And if you stay in the mist, you gon' be soaked. So listen up, cause this hair of the dog, what's real, what ain't? Is this the fog or smog? Cause there's a difference when you breathe it in. So don't let the corporate media take you for a spin. This that morning show, they put you in the know. So I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, go, go. Yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Hair of the dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hair of the Dog. I'm Andy Kennedy, and we are going to be concentrating on media and journalism in the post-election debacle, however you want to call it, era, and what it means to be independent, and what that means to you and us and everything that's going on currently. This is my lovely and talented co-host, Kerri Barber. How are you doing this morning, Kerri?
Good morning, Andy. Doing great. Doing great. I am highly caffeinated today, so I am ready to go, and so excited to have the guests on that we have today, because it is full on, unbarred, uncensored independent journalism today, which, you know, I have a biased opinion, but this is what democracy hinges on. Independent, unchained journalists. So this is exciting for me.
Well, that's good. And I agree with you. I think that we currently live in a society that is serving to the oligarchical nature of what's happening right now, especially considering who won the election, you know, and wanting to go back to the status quo of what we had previous to Trump, and what that means to you, and why that is dangerous if we all go back to sleep.
And that's exactly right. So one of the pushbacks that I personally saw repeated over and over again, anytime a Trump supporter heard a critique or a complaint, you know, kids in cages, they were always pushing back, well, you didn't object when Obama built the cages. And my pushback was, we did not know, because corporate media wasn't covering that. What they did was give a small little line to, immigration policy changes, right? So this is why independent journalism matters. And as we're going forward into this new era with Biden and Harris, getting credible, honest information and reporting is going to be so critical, so absolutely critical, especially when we talk about unity. You cannot buy unity. And this is where MSNBC and Fox News are going to fall short. Where you can buy unity is by having honest reporting and an honest, credible conversation about what is really going on. So I think that is where a lot of my hope rests, obviously. This is why we're doing the work that we're doing here. So one of the things that I wanted to point out was, okay, so we saw the debacle with The Intercept, and we hope that the editors at The Intercept get a fucking backbone and do their jobs. I hate to see a publication like that completely go under and sell out. But until we're sure, I'm looking to Jacobin Magazine for their reporting. And one of the reporters that I absolutely love is Luke Savage. Luke Savage, while he's Canadian, we'll forgive him for that. He is... I had to throw that in there, Andy.
Okay, and I have to throw it out.
Throw it out. Love it. So Luke couldn't join us this morning. He is busy working. So shout out to Luke. We love you, Luke. This is one of his articles that he published last week. And Luke, his pushback on me is like, by the time I get there, that article is going to be stale. But wait, no, it's not. And the reason for that is kind of buried at the end of the article in his summation. He talks about the Biden-McConnell administration. And that is exactly what we're going to see. So I think that Luke is so right on. And I did post a link to this particular article, and I thought the title just really clarified everything. We're going back to the status quo of 2015. 2015 and the Obama era was not great for working families. And when I say working families, I mean that's anybody who works for a living, anybody who is fortunate enough to retire, anybody who is disabled and unable to work. So that is my definition of working families. And it's not about race, it's not about class or anything else other than you must work or rely on a social safety net of some kind for your survival. So those years were not necessarily great for working people. We saw continued expansion of income inequality. So the status quo is just not good enough. And my personal pushback, I obviously agree with Luke on this, but my pushback to people now is we don't have time for your incrementalism. And for anyone who is preaching compromise, compromise means death and misery for people. And we need to quantify that. And if you're happy to go forward with, we need compromise, then I need you to volunteer yourself and your family to go first. If you're willing to do that, then I will listen to you on your argument of compromise. Till then, please stop putting my family, my kid, all of the people that I know in the front of the line for that misery and austerity measure, because I'm not having it anymore. So
exactly. We've, when we look at the entire picture of what's happening now and why it's so important for us to push back on the status quo, we completely negate the reasons why the entire Trump phenomenon even came to be, right? When we look at in 2016, the real reasons why people voted for Donald Trump and why that matters, because, the Russia narrative or the racist narrative or all of those things that are involved, quite honestly, it was just a matter of there were so many people in society that were so tired of just being an afterthought in that society, and they wanted to push back on the neoliberal regime that's been in place since Reagan, right? And when you look at 2020 and what the difference is, there was nothing, quite honestly, in the minds of the people that voted in 2016 for Trump that would make them not vote for him again in 2020, right? You had a same old style candidate who really didn't do any campaigning of any kind. And that's why we are where we are. And that's dangerous because there's an entire group of the population now that have gone back to sleep because the status quo is exactly what they wanted, right? They can put their pink pussy hats back in the closet and go to brunch. And I know that those are stereotypes, but, I'm angry, so screw you. So
right,
anyways,
Yeah. And that's exactly what Rome was pushing back on before the election, right? So Black lives still matter, LGBTQ still matters, income inequality still matters. So this is why the program today, I think, is so very important. And real quick, before we get to all of that, for those of you who are just tuning in, we are live and we do take your comments and questions as we go through. So shout out to Jeffrey and to Mike. Good morning. Saw your comments. Mike, always appreciate your memes and gifts. So thank you. Thanks, Obama. So if you have questions, comments for any of our guests, for us, you want to push back, you think we're wrong, put it in the comments, particularly on Twitter and Facebook. We stream to 12 different channels, but Facebook and Twitter seem to be best aligned with our software. We get them real quick. So feel free to weigh in. This conversation is always inclusive. We're family. So with that, I want to get to the first guest this morning. When we talk about unity and having a frank conversation across the political divide, the entire political perspective. There is a journalist out of New York who is doing some phenomenal work in a kind of an odd but simplistic way. He's doing roundtable panels, and it's the guests that he's inviting and bringing on. So I was fortunate enough to be part of a panel that he hosted yesterday on corruption. And I was so humbled by the caliber of not only the guests that he had in this panel, but the conversation that was happening. I was literally blown away. And obviously coming from Chicago and Illinois, I know about corruption, and it was straight cathartic for me to hear about the level of corruption in other states. So it's kind of therapy. But let's bring him on now. This is Shane Coughlin with Kerberos Roundtable. And I did put the link into the chat this morning. So go out and check out, subscribe to his channel, and you can participate in all of those conversations too. So good morning, Shane. Are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Hi, Shane. So just real quick, I wanted to talk to you about this channel that you have started and why you started doing these roundtable discussions.
Well, I started doing this because I saw a lot of what mainstream media was doing. I saw there's a lot of people out there who don't get a voice. The idea behind this is everybody should have a voice, and a lot of people don't. So I started interviewing people that you're never going to see on mainstream media. If you went to Fox News or MSNBC or CNN, you would never see the Green Party candidate for U.S. Senator in New Jersey, or the Libertarian candidate for Congress in Idaho, or maybe the executive director of Wolfpack. Well, maybe them, but probably very rarely. Or the founder of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, who recently hosted a third-party debate for president, as did we, by the way, but you won't see that on cable TV. I was kind of disheartened with what I saw on cable TV.
So, let me ask you this. Green Party candidates, they can't possibly win. Why would you waste airtime on Green Party candidates?
Well, because they have a message, and their message should be heard. Even if they don't win, I think they deserve to get their message out there. And I'm going to help them do that as much as with my platform.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and for those of you watching who are now screaming at me, yes, I know the Green Party candidates won, and they won all across the country. But that is a common narrative that we hear from our Biden bros and others. Why would you waste your third-party vote? No vote cast is wasted. And I want to make that point. So I applaud you, Shane, for including these voices. Like, for example, Mike, who was running for president, who knew that he was running? And he had such an amazing strategy that I wish it would have worked, but COVID kind of put the kibosh on it. This is I believe he said he was a Navajo.
Yes, Mark Charles.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark Charles. So his heritage allowed him to do canvassing across the entire country on reservations. And he brought up the point that if the entire Indian nation across the country voted, that would have been enough to earn him the electoral votes to become president. That's amazing. But those voices aren't heard.
No, they're really not.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the guests and some of the programming that you are doing, besides just the panel that I participated on yesterday.
Well, not too long ago, we did a roundtable debate where we brought on some of the third-party candidates. I co-moderated with Steph Zamorano from the Jimmy Dore Show, and together we did a third-party debate. These were candidates who they weren't going to win, but we wanted to give them a platform, and we wanted to give them a place to debate. Some of them were running independent. There was one running with the American Solidarity Party, and everyone else was running independent. Mark Charles himself also participated in that debate. And what we're doing now is we're going to be doing live streams every about 1 to 2 times a week, which is what we're going to be doing now, where we kind of interact with fans. We're bringing people into the Zoom call, and we're kind of talking with them. And we did it for the first time yesterday after that live stream.
So that's perfect. So if people want to get involved, or maybe they have a guest that you should speak to or join your panel discussion, how can they get in touch with you?
Oh, if they need to get in touch with me, we have a website, but it's not done yet, so I'm not going to get that out. But my phone number and my email I use for business. The phone number I use for my business operations would be 929-340-7079, or you can email us at Kerberos Roundtable Discussions at gmail.com or krtdmediagroup@gmail.com. If you have any guests that you think I should bring on, definitely email me, or you can send me a text. Call me.
That's perfect. And then we did post a link to your YouTube channel, so people can go check out your past content. Do you have any objections with us sharing some of your roundtable discussions across our network?
No, I have no objections to that.
Okay. We're happy to do it because I love and like I said, you bring on guests from across the political spectrum. And I think when more people start to hear some of the commentary and policy discussions, it's going to be eye-opening. Like the libertarian gentleman that I was on with yesterday, we agree on a lot more than you might suspect. And I am solidly in the progressives. So I think that is how we get our unity across the country. And I applaud you for the work that you're doing to facilitate that. So vital and necessary. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Any final thoughts or anything else that people should know about the work that you're doing or your upcoming plans?
Sure. So our upcoming plans are we're converting. We're in the process of converting we're in a 1-year plan in order to convert the Kerberos Roundtable Discussions into the KRTD Media Group, and we're turning into an LLC. We have a new show on our network, which has a libertarian right kind of slant, and we're adding more shows. So we're going to add, I host the progressive show on the network. So we're adding a bunch more shows. So we're adding more shows. We're turning into an LLC. We're actually going to start doing having articles up on our website once our website is complete. We're in the middle of a transformation, but we're going to keep doing content all throughout the transformation.
That's wonderful, and that's exactly what we need to hear. We applaud more networks doing more shows, more programming, and getting the comments out. So real quick, Mike Toller says, more candidates equals more choices and more better. Doubly so when combined with ranked choice voting. So to Mike, that actually came up yesterday under an anti-corruption platform, and it was amazing because you had the Green Party, you have progressives, you have libertarians. Everyone was talking about ranked choice voting and bringing more people on. So there again is a policy position where we have unity and we can all agree. So awesome. So thank you so much, Shane, for joining us this morning. This is wonderful. Totally applaud your work. Andy, I have completely talked over you again. Do you have anything for Shane?
Actually, I wasn't paying attention, so no.
Oh
no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, of course. No, I absolutely love what you're doing. It is so important. And, coming from what, Kerri and I joke about the fact that I'm Canadian, and all jokes aside, we don't have a duopoly in this country. We have more choices, and that gives us so much more advantage in our election system to vote for the people that we agree with, as opposed to the voting for the lesser of two evils. So, kudos. I absolutely agree with everything you're talking about. So thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you again, Shane. Beautiful. So kind of ties in nicely with the next guest that we have coming on. And I was actually just introduced to this particular gentleman. So he's going to explain it to me at the same time he explains it to you. And this is Lorenzo Santos, who is out of Racine, Wisconsin, doing some really cool things when it comes to local news coverage. So Lorenzo, good morning. How are you?
Great, thanks for having me. What we're working on right now is across the country, greater than 2,000 newspapers have closed their doors since about 2004. So there are a lot of counties throughout the United States and even globally that are not covered by a newspaper or any meaningful outlet at all. And Margaret Sullivan, actually, who is a veteran of the journalism industry, she wrote a great book about this called Ghosting the News. And it outlines in no uncertain terms the situation that we're facing in the local newspaper industry right now. And a lot of it's just due to revenue models. Before you could have print ads, and that accounted for a lot of what would allow those newspapers to survive and to be solvent. Now those revenue models are largely drying up, and it's hard for that shift. You'd think that shift could be easily made to digital, and it's not as seamless as a lot of folks would have thought. So what Redder News is doing, what we're looking at, and what our mission is to usher that transition from print and from traditional to the digital era. And we want to marry digital news in digital outlets and creatives with journalism, so that people who are trying to tell their stories in their local community can do that through social media. So that's what we're doing.
That's actually a really cool concept. Talked, I think it was last week, about the stats around paywalls and how some of those print media are really struggling, and so they've gone to a paywall, which kind of defeats the purpose of access to journalism. So how are you going to fund all of this?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I know that every time you look on, whether it be Wikipedia, whether it be any sort of news outlet, one of the big things that they say is, we want to make sure that our news is free for all, readers. We want to make sure that there's access. And one of the most important things to understand is right now it's going to be harder and harder to provide free news for the masses if there is no revenue behind it. What we saw before is a lot of the model was that you'd either have people subscribe, and they'd get their weeklies, dailies, what have you, or you'd have a philanthropic donor, and by way of some, very rich person who would help bolster those newspapers. What happens when that dries up? It's very hard. So fewer than 1 in 6 actually, Americans pay for their news. And to answer your question, to get to the actual answer, we're going to have a paradigm shift where we show people that news does cost money. It is expensive to create valuable journalism, especially when you get into investigative journalism. And you have, with the president talking about voter fraud and things like that. When you have those great journalists who are doing their work, you have to pay for it. And that's really hard to, get that message across for a lot of folks. A lot of people don't realize that the journalism industry is in trouble financially. It's not sustainable if people don't pay for it. And that's an unpopular message, but it's the reality that we face. So those paywalls, I think there should be a certain amount that is free no matter what. People need to get information. It's vital for democracy. But we also have to pull together and allow the public to understand that we really do need to pay for news on some level, even if it's a few bucks, whatever people can give. There has to be a financial backing to these enterprises.
So let me toss this idea out at you, right? So, and Mike, one of our viewers, can speak to this. My local paper was owned by a large conglomerate, and they weren't necessarily reporting on everything. They got to pay reporters too, had a paywall. But there were things that were happening locally, like a couple of disgruntled old men wanted to cancel the disabled and senior buses. And in order to push back on that, because the buses themselves were creating a revenue stream for local businesses so that people could get to those businesses. So in order to push back as a public citizen and a voter, you had to be aware that this was going on. And social media was not necessarily covering it because, let's be honest, while people are engaging in social media, that's a really small segment of the population. So this particular story had meaning and value on a local level. Obviously, CNN and no one's going to cover it. It's got to be local. So my question to you is, rather than privatizing the cost, why would we not pool our resources and use it as a public utility and fund it that way? We used to do that with PBS. Why would we not do that with a certain incremental approach to local media coverage?
That's a really good question, and I think the real answer in that is with any public utility, there's always a way to pay for it, right? There's you get that through tax revenue. So I guess the question would be, where would that revenue stream come from? And really, it comes through asking folks to donate or pay a subscription or a premium or freemium model. But even with public utilities, those all come through some kind of revenue stream. And it's just a question of what are folks willing to do when they actually know the dire straits that the journalism industry is actually facing right now. And I don't think a lot of people are actually, they have a real appreciation for where local journalism is. They just, eventually they might see their local newspaper that they got every day on their doorstep just disappear, and they didn't even realize it was that big of an issue.
Okay, so real quick, Mike actually weighed in on this one. So Mike and I, we are familiar with the way the paper works, and he said, and this is Northern Illinois, Blue Illinois. He said it is so bad. He actually found articles about things like boil orders for city water behind the paywall. So we do get into an inequality kind of issue here, right? That's a public health. If I do not have access because I cannot afford to, pay your paper and other paper and things like this, and there's a boil order and I get sick, what recourse now do I have, right? I am being punished because I am poor, or how is this going to work? I mean, don't expect you to come up with the answer right away, but these are things that we need to consider, correct?
Absolutely. And Kerri, I will not pretend for a second to have all the answers. I think that this is going to be a whole of society, and even in some cases, people get really upset with me when I introduce maybe government helping. But at the end of the day, it kind of stinks to have to admit this, but money makes the world go around. It just really does. There have to be dollars introduced to solve these issues. The revenue models are drying up. That's without a doubt. People who have been in the industry for many, many, many years do not have an answer. So I, as someone who is not a traditionally trained journalist, I'm not going to pretend to necessarily understand, but I can tell you I've researched this extensively. You have folks like Ariana Picari who have they left their job with MSNBC because of what they felt was going on with the news industry. And not just her, but many others are doing the same thing because they do not like the way the news is going. It is largely a corporatized business. And at the end of the day, we really need to get back to the fundamentals, back to the basics, back to local news carrying the day, because local news drives all news, no matter what. So as far as the monetary issue, I think, yes, you're right. We've got to figure out how to make sure that news is sustainable and that everyone has access to it. And that's not an easy thing to do at all. So I agree with that.
Yeah, so it's not only the technology piece. Do you have the internet to cover it? Do you have the equipment to cover it? But Andy, I'm thinking federal jobs guarantee. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm also thinking that if we're serious about the role of journalism and the media in a democracy, right, where they talk about how the media is supposed to keep politicians honest, right? There's certainly no reason why in a just society that there can't be federal funding towards that end, right? That's, if eventually in a completely unfettered capitalist system, the people with the most money are going to get the loudest voice. And then it just gets harder and harder to overturn that narrative, even if it's basically corrupt, right? And that's the system that we see on all levels, right? In the election that we just went through, in the healthcare industry and the fossil fuel industry, right? It's the money talks and nothing else walks, right? To paraphrase that, but it's so when in terms of how you let people's voices go out there, then there certainly couldn't. It would make sense that, you know, the federal government, which has the ability to pay for things because of the nature of its economic structure, then why there couldn't be an allocation of a PBS style independent media. The problem is we don't currently have the ability to do that because of the oligarchs and the neoliberal regime that we live in right now.
Mm-hmm. Right, and you know, honestly, Lorenzo, I'm not trying to put you on the spot and have you, explain away all the financing models, because we have a Patreon model too. So it's a subscription, sponsor, support thing, and it's what we have found. We opted not to do the paywall. We're not doing AdSense. We are just doing straight Patreon. So as you move forward with this, we look forward to seeing what solutions you come up with. But what I'm particularly interested in is, how are you going to recruit people to cover local stories? Tell me about this social media model that you mentioned before.
Well, right now, I think it's really interesting because we are in what's called the gig economy. I mean, there are people who, you know, whether it's Uber, Airbnb, any kind of social platform out there right now, there's a lot of ways to make money. And I feel like there is a missing opportunity in the journalism field, in the journalism space. Now, the immediate question that I would get is, well, how do you control for quality? And that's really important. You can't just have anyone off the street. But I also would say to that, look, not everyone can be an Airbnb host. Not everyone can drive for Uber. There are checks and balances. There is a vetting process. And there would be for us too. Anyone who is not a classically trained or formally trained journalist would have to, you know, be vetted and show a writing sample, show that they, can follow our journalistic integrity standards, just to make sure that there is quality. That's really important. But here's the punchline as well, and it's not a joke. It's a very serious thing. But there are a lot of journalists who are out of work right now for exactly what I've already said. There are a lot of journalists who have already lost their jobs. So it's not like they just disappeared, and they don't exist anymore. Those journalists, we feel we could re-engage with those folks and then introduce them to this platform. And, it's a less democratized way. It's more decentralized way of, conducting journalism. But we do believe that with everything that's happening in what is going on with the influencer movement right now, I don't know if you've heard about influencer marketing and things like that, but there is a growing business model where you do not have to go and audition or, take that long process that maybe you would have had to take before to get your foot in the door to have your message heard. This show is a perfect example of that. Anyone with the internet can, have their message heard. If they're skilled, they can grow an audience with that too. So we believe that in this environment, there's no reason that journalism cannot be more decentralized and still be quality in order to tell those local stories that need to be told. Not just nationally. This is actually a global issue that I have not seen any significant solutions for. And if anyone can point me to there are definitely projects that are happening, but they're kind of piecemeal. So we feel that this is a good solution for a time that social media is taking a front and center standpoint for people to, for as far as value goes.
Absolutely. So I did post a link to your website, but if people want to get involved, learn more about what you're doing, maybe join in this very important effort, how do they get in touch with you?
So they can go to rhetornews.com, RHETOR news.com, and they can actually sign up for our newsletter right now. We're hoping to launch officially by this summer. So we're just, we're going to keep people updated on what we're doing through that.
Excellent. And shout out to Mike, who's being snarky. Joe Biden says if you're out of work, you can learn to code in a week. That was actually Rahm Emanuel, former mayor of Chicago. So yeah, for all those out of work journalists, hopefully they get in touch with you, not try to do a crash course on Bing. But yeah, this is wonderful. And we saw the work you're doing, and look forward to seeing a lot more. And if we can be of help to you on this network, as well as written, video, whatever, please reach out and let us know, and we'll help elevate the good work you do, because that's why we exist. So
thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Lorenzo. All right, Andy, we are almost at the top of the hour. Anything that I missed about journalism? There was one comment that Mike had. He said federal funding for news under the Trump administration, he said that he would have cut it kind of like he did with PBS. My pushback on that is, well, Trump is now leaving. Journalists are staying. So this is kind of the transient nature of what serving in public office is supposed to be. It's never supposed to be an evergreen thing, Mitch McConnell. But in this case, we could bring
name
back
dropping.
Yeah,
Mitch McConnell.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So this is a case where we could then petition the new Congress members. The new Congress coming in was this 117th that'll be coming. Petition our representatives to increase funding or to reinstate funding for Big Bird. Why wouldn't we do that? I grew up on the streets. Most people in America did. Bring it back. And we could do the same thing when it comes to public money. And, oh, by the way, you have a bunch of retirees, disabled people, all of these things that go together with local journalism. So if you are a member of your community and you go to your local municipal meeting, whether it's a trustees meeting or a county board meeting, you could just write down what you heard. Then you become a citizen journalist and pass that information back on. So I think this is an excellent place where journalism, which is needed, the work that Lorenzo's doing, and the federal jobs guarantee provides an answer for transitory work as well as providing a public good.
Oh, absolutely, it does, right? There's so many different gaps in the two different models of media that we're talking about right now, right? The main one is funding, right? Access and message. And the problem is that you have these corporations that are gotten so huge, that are so well funded. And that's what you're trying to really compete with, right? On a system like television, where there's only so many channels, right? And people will tune into those channels, and those networks are so well funded by, the situations where they, that are so centrist, oligarchical, whatever you want to call it, in nature, right? That it's almost a fact of, you're going to have to do this in the independent side without the things that make them so strong, right? Without the organizational things, right? And in terms of independent media on the internet, on social media, where, as Lorenzo was talking about, everybody and their brother, can live stream, right? And how that is really kind of a haphazard way of trying to get information out. Now, as we get better at this, and as we have a better understanding of what it takes to organize it properly, I think that will focus us. But until then, There are just a lot of quiet voices in the darkness that are trying to scream at the powers that be that say, give us our time, give us our moment, and not being heard, right? And that's what we're up against, really.
Well, it's real easy to do the clickbait type of commentary, and that to me is largely where CNN and Fox have gone. They've gone to the bread and circuses because it actually earns money. If you're going to repeat to me on television the things that I want to hear, I am more likely to sponsor that message. Whereas, overarchingly, I think that the competition is good. So while you may have, and we do have this situation now where anybody with a video camera can say anything, but Lorenzo's right. If you're doing it credibly and you're building an audience and you're doing it in a responsible way, look, UPS started with 2 guys and a bike, right? And that is where I think we struggled to begin with, and obviously changes. I moved, and other things are happening. Brandon's got, how many jobs does Brandon have now? 4, 3?
61.
Right. So we, even our own network, as polished and professional as we are, I mean, obviously nobody's got the credentials Virginia has on our team, but we're doing what we can, and our audience has grown because of that. And I think Lorenzo's absolutely right on that fact. However, I see a future where CNN is, they're so top heavy. CNN, Fox News, all of that, they're going to collapse under their own weight. And I say good riddance to that kind of...
I agree with that completely. I absolutely agree with that, right? Which we currently live in a world where if you post on Twitter, right, you could have the most profound idea in the history of Twitter. But if it isn't accompanied by a video or a graphic, then nobody's ever going to read it, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we're up against. And that's the kind of thing that we have to get people to stop being distracted by the clickbait and listen to our message. And I think that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah. Speaking of video, we have a promo coming out today for Veterans Off Grid. And it's so funny you mentioned that. If you don't have an image or a video, people don't watch it. And this is where I think the mission behind Veterans Off Grid is so powerful, because they're kind of saying the same thing. Today is Veterans Day, and all of us will be more than happy to click like and love and whatever on a happy Veterans Day message and then put it out of mind tomorrow. Like our Facebook like is going to cure cancer or something. So what Veterans Off Grid is asking is just $1. And the way that their model and their mission works, even donating $1, $5, $10 makes a huge difference, because they are in a sustainability model space. So we have a video coming out today on Veterans Day. Today is the 11th month, the 11th day, and at 11 a.m. Eastern, that video will be coming out, because that's how Armistice Day works. So please tune in for that, and you will see it. Like and support the message and the mission that they have. And, Andy, it's got a cute video, so maybe people will see it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important. It's Remembrance Day here in Canada as well. Same idea, same concept at the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, right? And even if you understand why wars currently happen in the world, how they're generated, right? And being anti-war and anti-regime change and all of that stuff. That doesn't negate the fact that there are countless numbers of people in the world that were conscripted by their governments, or that had no choice but to enlist to survive, to go out and lost their lives while they were gone, or came home and were not properly taken care of by the people that sent them in the first place, right? That's what it means, that we remember the sacrifices, whatever those were, of the people that did those things. And that's why it's important.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. And on that note, I'm done for the day. So, Andy, you got anything else that you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, I'm good. I am feeling a little bit more positive about the future. Don't know if that's just because the weather here has been good, but maybe. Who knows? But I think that we all kind of have to pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off and realize that we're all still here and we're all, have the breath in our lungs to fight another day. And as more people get unplugged from the matrix, it's just going to strengthen our position. And that's very important. And we need to just push forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and for Mike and Jeffrey who posted comments today. Thank you so much. We will be back on Friday morning. Have no idea what we're talking about. So if you have suggestions or an issue or topic that you really think we need to cover, if you have somebody that you think we need to talk to, let us know, because we are totally about grassroots here and getting that information out, as well as, those big scary headlines that we see nationwide. So let us know. Put something in the comments on our Facebook page. Send us an email on our website, Twitter, any of those channels. We'll see them. We'll get to it, and we'll dive into those stories that you want to see. Particularly on a Friday. Friday is so casual, so anything goes. Let's do it. All right.
Pantsless Fridays.
I don't know that we're going that far, but
who
okay.
would know?
No. You maybe. I would have no way of knowing. We'll assume Andy's pantsless on Friday.
Yes. I'm a stand-up guy, but I'll be not standing up.
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate it. Borat style. Yes. Okay. On that note, everybody have a wonderful Wednesday and a great rest of the week. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thank you very much.
We bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts, how it's supposed to be. Hair of the dog.